Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Three Wise Men. We have a nice treat for you guys today. We're going to teach you guys how to stay alive when you do dumb stuff. And since that's something that we do all the time, we definitely need it. So, here we are. I'm Andy. This is Brian. This is Billy, my medic. And Turbo. Hope you guys enjoy, guys.
They call me Turbo because I'm a speed demon.
I'm Brian Goldstein. I went from special ed student to 8-figure CEO.
I'm Andy Cali Fresh. I'm a double agent, and together we are the Three Wise Men.
So, Billy, tell us about yourself, what we're here to do today.
So, I've been in medicine for, 20 or so years. Right now I work in military special operations. So between working as a civilian, like EMT paramedic thing 20 years ago to where I am now, my experience and the things I've done and seen and the training I've had, all those have really led me to have the capacity to help others help themselves.
So I have my off-road racing kit that I keep in my chase truck here with me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into
We
that.
have Andy's law enforcement bag that is department issued.
Okay.
So I guess we'll review this, get your opinion on it, what's missing, what's not missing, and then obviously this is a lot to carry, so maybe somebody wants something a little tighter.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you guys also offer something that's one size fits all and pretty much good to go.
Yeah, we have all kinds of sizes at My Medic, and I'm a huge advocate of that. Like, I nerd out on this stuff, so I've got 20 different size kits, but they're all very specific for whatever event, and you can customize them too.
So we'll let you tear into this and...
Yeah, let's check it out. All right, so this is your Baja race truck. So again, I'm not gonna take this hunting, right? Like, we're not gonna take this into the mountains hunting, but I'm definitely gonna put this in my race truck. So the first thing that is glaring to me is this guy right here. So this is what's called a chest tube kit, right? So unless you have a doctor or an 18 Delta in your chase vehicle or in your vehicle, dude, that needs to go away, right? So, I mean, that's a massively invasive procedure, right? So that's gone. What else we got? Okay, cool. So we've got some hemostatic gauze in here. That's great. Stops some bleeding. Most people think, oh, that's a CPR shield, but anytime you have to help another person breathe, those things can come in handy. A little bougie tube for suction. It looks like you have a suture kit here as far as instruments. I don't see any sutures in here. Even if I did, let's go ahead, replace that stuff with a stapler.
There goes $500,
Way
by the way.
My bad. Duct tape or Gorilla Tape all day long. Love that stuff. Flashlight obviously can come in handy if it has batteries or works. Calamine, trauma shears, awesome to have.
Those are clutch.
Yeah. More eye wash irrigation stuff. Hand sanitizer, which is the hottest commodity these days. Chapstick, a scalpel. This is what I'm talking about for the airway. An NPA, nasopharyngeal airway. Emergency blankets all day long. Chem sticks all day long. Band-Aids all shapes and sizes. I'm down for that. Band-Aids that will never save a life, but they're common. So
Boo-boos hurt though.
Boo-boos hurt. I want to say something clever so bad, but I'm gonna be cool, Brian. I'm gonna be cool. Alcohol prep pads, iodine, stuff like that. Stuff for skin cleansing, absolutely. A little medical tape. You've got a couple of rolled gauze here. Triangular bandage, you bet. Foldable splint, for sure. This is just kind of like a abdominal pad. Tons of over-the-counter meds. This is awesome. A little burn gel in here, so all day. This one is full of ace wraps, right? Love it. Lots of gloves, another splint, another foldable splint. That's great. Oftentimes you're gonna run into a situation you do need 2 of those.
Plus with off-road racing, you never know. Might come across a motorcycle rider that came off the bike and who knows?
Oh, absolutely. I've done that before. Real world in Moab, went four-wheeling or off-roading in my Bronco and ran into a dude that was on moto and busted his femur, dude. It was so gnarly and ended up patching him up. And I happened to have one of those with me too, so. 2 more big, fat, huge gauze rolls. Let's replace those with something more compact.
We're probably about like $2,000 tossed by now. Just putting it out there.
Right.
Quickie cold packs. Those things are awesome. Oh, check it out, dudes. I don't even know why I'm here. I guess I could probably leave. Here's a kit. Here's your directions right here. That's basic first aid.
That's everything I need.
One stop.
My job here is done.
Right.
Like,
There's
that's all you need.
one problem, Billy.
What's that?
He can't read.
Ah, see?
It says,
I guess I do have a place here.
it says C-Spot Run, but there's no pictures in here. So we are missing some life-saving stuff.
Yes, yeah. Basically, a good, solid, effective tourniquet, chest seals, quick clot gauze. So a bunch of quick clot gauze in here. Those are the ones that are really glaring to me. Maybe a couple more NPAs, the little nose hose guy.
Yeah,
because there's only one in there. So when you're talking kits or whatever you have, you guys have been out there, like usually something goes wrong. So I say 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Sure. What if Tiny's with you? Do you want to have some dog stuff in here?
Yes, absolutely. And the cool thing about, you know, canines and humans is there's a lot that transfers, like to include, you know, medications, treatments, everything. So most of the stuff that we can do for each other, for humans, you can do on a canine. And Tiny is clearly into this video, really into tourniquets and whatnot. First aid is kind of his jam, clearly.
What about Andy's law enforcement? Is this one both law enforcement issue or this?
No, this is my personal issue.
All right, so
that one's issue there.
All right,
This is
let's see.
We'll just kind of.
A bag in a bag. Let's check it out.
I feel like you're not liking this already.
Dude, I don't see anything off the top of my head that will save anyone's life. I'll keep these and we'll keep these. The rest of this stuff, dude, especially for a kit, that the thing was huge, man. For a kit for law enforcement that you need to carry around and stuff like that, let's get a smaller bag, condense it down to life-saving materials. Get rid of this,
So this
man.
is the one that Andy purchased.
Okay, so this is an over the
So
counter
you're
kind
not
of.
opening that with your hands. You probably
I'm gonna have to like,
break the zipper or something.
yeah, I don't want to break this, but for sure, let's get rid of the zip tie.
Well, imagine
For everyday
blood on
storage.
your hands, there's sweat, there's water, there's something.
Oh, exactly. You're going to be fumbling
Yeah.
with it and dropping stuff. I mean, in ideal conditions, you're going to end up doing that. You know what I mean? Let alone anything going wonky. So, all right, let's see what we got. I see it has a little quick clot inside right there. So, I mean, it gives me hope, dude. It gives me hope. Ooh, what's this? Tweezers. Okay, gloves, got it, no problem. We want to protect ourselves. Coban, some more gloves. Let's see, we've got a couple of 2x2, 2" by 2" sterile gauze pieces, a congratulations, you can't save anyone's life certificate. Well, let me finish.
Oh, we got a
before
book.
A large book.
you get a book. Now, it's kind of funny, like, you know, it depends on the kit, man. I don't want to carry literally around a book like everywhere I go. But sometimes, you know, it's good because we don't always have, I certainly don't have all the answers and I'm pretty experienced, but it's about, hey, I know where to look to find something. So, okay, so here's your quick clot, gauze, moleskin. So let's go ahead and make a pile of the keepers, right? If you keep this in your car, yeah, no problem, man. You get cut, you get bruised and bumped, yeah, have this, but this is not a trauma kit, man. We got Band-Aids, some 4x4 gauze, a safety pin, a couple of over-the-counter meds, and some tape. This is not trauma equipment, in my opinion. Like, it's just not. So let's go ahead and keep this stuff, put another quick clot in there, and maybe some compact gauze. Let's get an NPA in there for the airway. Let's do a couple of chest seals for some torso injuries, stuff like that. Tourniquet, absolutely. The biggest things that will save a life all the way down the list are not here. That's my take on those kits, man. What do y'all think?
Oh, it's very valid information. I think it's important that, you know, guys that are in the field, that are in the front lines, know that they're going to have the stuff that's going to save a life if need be.
I want to hear your take on this, Brian. Like, we kind of went through your kit. Let's just talk about that one specifically, and then Andy, we'll talk about yours.
So my kit, I feel like 75% confident with.
Mm-hmm.
There's some stuff in there, obviously, that you can make work in a pinch that the three of us would not be able to. Like,
Totally.
the tourniquets, if we can't figure out that, we're really screwed because
Right.
there's people losing limbs out there from accidents or whatnot. And just the gauze, compacting space, the breathing things, because I have no idea how to put in an oral airway.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that we're learning this today when we're not in a pinch situation where we need this now. So Andy, how do you feel going in the field with your field trauma kit?
You know, it's funny. As someone in the field that's there every day, this is the last 6 months. We're so focused and have been so focused on tactical stuff that we're thinking guns, knives, bullets, vests, and procedures and policies and just movement. the last thing on our mind is, what if things go south? And if they do, what are you going to use to help that person out? Namely yourself or your partner. And now that we've opened up all this stuff, I'm like, what am I gonna use? I don't have a tourniquet, well, at least in this bag. I have one quick clot, and then I have this with no tape.
Random stuff, right?
Right. If I'm in a world of hurt and it's just me and my partner and we're taking rounds and my partner's hurt, one, is this on me 24/7? Two, when it's on me and I open it and I see this, I'm like, oh boy, well, I'm gonna have a nice explanation to have.
To put you guys out in the field without something that's very complete, and dude, I'm trying not to cuss, I'm all upset now.
Yeah.
It's a real uh-oh situation.
It's an eye-opener to all of us, from your med kit to my med kit to your knowledge and experience of what you know and what should be in there. And to everyone else watching this video, it's like, wow, we think we have a good med kit, and then we start breaking it down and talking about it, and really we just have a couple band-aids and a couple owie fixes.
Boo-boo kit.
So let's do this. Let's do a bunch of work together, and we'll solve two things, man. We'll get you guys squared away. Hey, I know I want these things in my kit, and secondly, we'll get you spun up on how to use everything in there. Like, hey, you need this, this, and this. Oh, and by the way, let's get you trained up on how to use X, Y, and Z.
You could have all the tools in the world if you don't have the know-how.
Oh, you hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
Everyone's buying first aid kits and prep kits and all this. And I'm like, I love that. I'm a huge advocate.
Sure.
But if you know how to use it, it literally is worthless, man. Like all that first aid and survival stuff, it's just, it's not going to do anything.
Exactly.
So we're going to go through this series of basically what we call a MARCH algorithm. MARCH simply is a way to remember certain steps that you're going to take for first aid, like traumatic stuff. So the M is massive bleeding, right? The A is airway. The R is respirations. The C is circulation. The H is hypothermia. And we're going to cover each of those in detail. So M, we'll start out massive bleeding. Tourniquets and wound packing are the big two with that one. You guys used tourniquets before? You guys pretty spun up on tourniquet use, whether it's like a windlass style with the little stick looking thing, or more like the rapid style like this?
Yeah, I have most experience with this, the bright neon one.
This guy here, that's a very common tourniquet, yep. Cat tourniquet, great tourniquet.
I got one of each. I don't know how to use it.
Not by the end of the day, homie. So we'll get you squared away. And then LEO, you're probably somewhat familiar with some of these.
Yeah, I used two of them on two victims. So.
All right, so let's talk about how tourniquets work first of all, real quick. So the way they work is you have, let's say my finger's the artery, right? When that thing's severed, it's bleeding, you're losing blood insanely fast, right? So the way these things work is you put pressure on that vessel there. So it compresses against the bone, right? So let's say it's somewhere on my arm. I've got the vessel running through my arm. I need to press that vessel against my bone. And that's all that's doing is just pinching off that blood flow. It's very, very simple when you actually think of the anatomy. It's just pinched off, right? So that's generally how tourniquets work. Now, whether it's something like this or this, they all have the same mechanism of functioning, and it's just pinching off that valve. All right, so today we're gonna focus on the rapid style tourniquet. These are super easy to use. They compact, very small. LEO uses them quite a bit. And I've got a few of these. So in all fairness, we'll give you guys the same one and see how fast you guys can get these on a little bit down the road. Turbo, what's your favorite color?
Let's go with the green.
Green? Andy?
Orange.
Orange? Red? Red. All right, perfect.
So do I rip off this tag?
Great question. So that is kind of a natural reaction, like, oh, I'll take that tag off, like my t-shirt or whatever. You actually want to leave that on. It has a couple of purposes. One, it kind of holds this part, which is the cleat, in place, providing this little loop. You'll notice whether it's the time tab on this guy or any one of these, there's always a spot, or usually a spot, to write the time. Always document the time you put on the tourniquet, because that's going to be pertinent information down the road for the folks at the hospital. Have you guys heard of, like, oh, if you put a tourniquet on, you're going to lose a limb? Yeah, have you heard that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's simply not true. Tourniquets absolutely, positively do not equal limb loss. So let's get into the rapid tourniquet here. Basically, you've got one giant long, kind of stretchy piece of cord here. You're going to see the little loop, right? They call it the 3-finger loop. You'll take the tail, slide it through the loop.
It's like you're tying a shoe, Brian. A little rabbit hole through the bunny.
Does it matter which way you're going through?
No, and that's the beauty. Like, can you do it this way? Yes, it will work better if you put the cleat away from you.
Got it.
But in that panic moment, if you happen to do it like this, the way this thing attaches after you wrap it around, it slides in the cleat. As long as you can make that happen with those wraps, which is easy to do, it doesn't matter. All right, so we got the tail through there, making it a big loop. That big loop, whatever leg or arm it is, that's gonna go through the loop. So in this case, let's just do self-application on ourselves. So put your arm through the loop. And when we put tourniquets on, we just say high and tight, right? High and tight every time. So tight, pretty obvious. High for a few different reasons. Number one, let's say the person still has clothes on, right? Like they're in uniform, whatever. We do not have time to go ahead and cut clothes because it is an arterial bleed. They're gonna go down. We have, who knows, seconds, maybe a couple minutes. We're not cutting off clothes. So high and tight. You take the tail, wrap it around. And when you're doing this, any tourniquet, the tighter the better. There is no too tight, right? Because we wanna make damn sure that blood flow is cut off. So for this rapid tourniquet here, you're gonna do 3 wraps. Again, as tight as you can. And there's some, like if the patient's very, very small and you have all this tail left, go ahead and just keep wrapping. It's just gonna be that much more effective.
My arms are too big. I can't do 3 loops.
Oh, listen here, tough guy. Well, this is great though, because everyone's different, right? You have like big arms. So once we do this and we start testing, let's see what those 2 wraps do. So you've got your tail here, and when you're wrapping this, you want to stack them, not on top of each other, but like going down, right? Yeah, looks good, just like that. Take that tail and just simply tuck it into the cleat, like this. This little part, just like that. How simple was that?
Great.
It was really complicated.
Yeah, I know, I get it, but so is shoe tying with bunnies and bunnies and bears. So how comfortable is this right now for everybody?
It's not horrible. It's not amazing.
How about after a half hour?
It's gonna suck.
It's gonna start to suck. That's one thing you guys have to keep in mind, whether it's on yourself or on somebody else. They're not comfortable, man, and they hurt, and they're gonna continue to hurt and get worse over time. Sometimes it'll be misconstrued as like, oh, this tourniquet hurts, I must have put it on wrong. Definitely not the deal. They hurt, right? It's unnatural to have your blood flow cut off. Yeah.
What colors?
Definitely.
Dude, look at my hands.
So let's go ahead and take them off, take a little break. So how are you guys feeling of self-application, whether it's on a leg, arm, whatever?
These are super simple.
Yeah,
Super simple.
So let's do this. Go ahead and reset your tourniquet, and whatever you did last time, whatever arm you put it on your opposite arm. Ready? Go. Did you lose the tail? Nice. Okay. What was the time on that?
12 to 15 seconds.
12 to 15 seconds. That's pretty legit. You've literally put this on once in your life. That's one of the things I like about this tourniquet. It's so simple and easy to use. So Andy, probably an effective tourniquet. We haven't tested it yet, but let's say you got hit right here, right? You're in your uniform. All you know is it hurts and there's a bunch of blood on your leg. So that's why we go way up here.
So you want it like into the crotch.
All up into the crotch. When you're putting this on somebody else, keep that in mind, whether it's one of these style, this, watch out for the dude's junk, because it really can be an issue. You're talking about like somebody with a giant. So you guys did the opposite arm, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Did you find it any easier or more difficult?
Same.
Pretty much the same. With some of these other style tourniquets, we naturally put stuff on whether we're left-handed or right-handed, and I just noticed everybody putting it on their left arm because they're left. So you have to keep that in mind, like, hey, I need to be proficient in this on both sides. What if, again, that situation, I literally only have one hand? Absolutely. All right, how am I gonna make this work? So something to keep in mind. Let's do the upper extremity, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this little machine here, which is a Doppler machine. So this allows us to audibly hear the heartbeat when you put it on a pulse point. You're gonna put it on, I'm gonna time you, put a little stress on you, and then let's see how effective your tourniquet is. Timer ready? All right, begin. Remember guys, high and tight, effective tourniquets. You're wincing it. That's actually a good sign. That's a good sign. I'll show you how this works. I see your wrist. I'm gonna do mine. I'll show you what it sounds like. So let's pop this thing on. All right. So here, hear that? So if I hear that on you, that's bad, right? I shouldn't hear anything. All right, you're good.
Can I
Go
tell
ahead
you
and release
now?
it. Yeah.
I can't feel anything.
I think my hand going there is good.
I thought I heard something, but I got nothing. You're good. All right. So what you got here?
Pins and needles. So
There's
hopefully
no
that's a good
promises
sign.
in war, right?
So you effectively cut off that blood flow, that arterial blood flow that was causing your death, right? Causing you to bleed off or bleed out is now cut off. You're good. Before we wrap, I just want to point out a couple of things. We talked about the high and tight, but I also want to mention, you know, I get the question a lot, like when should I loosen it? When should I take it off? And the answer to both is never. You guys don't have to worry about it. Don't ever take a tourniquet off. How you guys feel about it?
I feel confident.
A lot more confident now, that's for sure.
Another refresher, because you can
Because
never
I would
have
have,
too many.
I would have only looped it once and said, all right, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. The more the better.
Billy again here from My Medic. He's going to show us how to pack a wound that your tourniquet will not basically stop the blood flow to. Other than that, I have no idea what I'm talking about, so I'm going to let Billy take the way.
Right on. Not for long, dude. We'll get you super spun up on how to treat an arterial bleed that is not in a spot where you can put a tourniquet on. So think kind of armpit area, think groin area, something to where you can try and put a tourniquet on, but it's not going to cover, it's not going to cut off the blood flow. What we have here is I've got a little training aid I'm going to have you guys use, and then we'll get something a little more real life-ish. So starting off, when you pack a wound, you're gonna wanna use like some kind of hemostatic dressing. Like Quick Clot is my go-to. Step number one is you're gonna wanna start with something like that. Now, if that doesn't fill that whole void, then you can go, it's no problem, just use regular gauze on top of that, because what matters here, that's got the hemostatic agent, that's got the little blood clotting stuff in here. So that needs to make contact with the bleeder, and then you can just pack on top of that. I'm gonna kind of talk you guys through this, and then I'll have you do it, and then we'll all of us will go over and do the other training aid. This is the hole. This is where all the blood's coming from, right? It's an arterial bleed. It's bleeding like crazy. I need to make sure this stops to save this life. What you're trying to do is get eyes on and identify the bleeder, like where is that blood coming from? Because that's where you're gonna put the pressure initially, right? So again, we're gonna start out with your Quick Clot hemostatic dressing. Now, they come in like Z-folds, they'll come rolled up like this. They all function the same, but what matters, first of all, is you see how I'm just kind of balling up the end of it. This knot of material goes right on that bleeder, right? You take that big power ball there, and that goes right over the wound. So once you're in here, guys, the name of the game is constant pressure, right? So I've got my finger on the wound, I'm running my Quick Clot in, and however you want to do it, 2 fingers, 1 finger, thumb finger, it's got to be a 1-for-1 swap, meaning inside that wound, I'm kind of going like this and packing that stuff and packing it and just stacking that gauze on itself, but I'm never letting pressure up. It's not like pack it in, grab some more, pack it in. It's constant pressure. Now, a lot of times, I've seen it countless times, heck, I've done it, is you want to keep a hold of your tail. Like if you drop this, it's going through sand or dirt or oil or whatever, and it's just better to keep it clean. Now, if you drop it, is it the end of the world? No, that patient's probably gonna be on antibiotics down the road and stuff like that. But too often the tail gets dropped and it's just kind of gross. So if you can hold the tail, right? One hand, and then again, 1-for-1 swap, taking that combat gauze, and just packing it, stacking it on itself with constant pressure on that little red dot on that little bleeder. So a lot of people are like, oh man, that's pretty invasive or that's gnarly. Yeah, dude, you're 3 knuckles deep in somebody's leg or arm or whatever. Like, yeah, they're probably not going to be super stoked on it. It might be a little weird for you, but keep in mind, just like how tourniquets hurt, look, dude, this has to happen. You guys need to make it happen. The patient needs to understand this has to happen. So you get in there and like any treatment, like be aggressive, make it happen. Don't mess around. So I'm packing this, and the key to no matter how big this is, you have to fill that void, right? You have to have that pressure of that full void to keep constant pressure on the vessel. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you still have 2 knuckles.
So yeah, I've got a ways to go. What do? That's when you pull out. You can pull out another quick clot, but if you've got regular gauze, just go for this because that's the stuff that hits the bleeder. This is just packing the pressure on top. So when we put all the extra stuff in your Baja kit, and you and I kind of talked about it, yeah, you need a ton of gauze, man. Gauze is your best friend. Keeping constant pressure, right? And this is key. You can hold with one finger and tear this open if it is a roll gauze, because this stuff's pretty common. Pop it. I need to fill this wound. Basically, I'm gonna keep going. And while we're here, I'll just show you a quick tip because again, this stuff is so common. And when you're packing a wound, you can definitely unroll it and pack it. That's totally fine, that totally works. But a little trick is to pull out from the inside, right? So now you're pulling from the inside and you can see it just kind of comes out a little bit easier. You're not like trying to unroll it and stuff like that. So you pull it from the inside out and you continue to pack. You pack until the void's totally full and you're about 2 centimeters over the surface of the skin. The reason for that is the next step is putting pressure dressing or like an ACE wrap over this because again, just because you pack the wound, you're not done. You have to keep the pressure on there. So with this big mound right there, it's gonna keep the pressure on that pinpoint, right? It won't be surface level. So depending on the situation, if he's got another wound, maybe I can cut this off, smash it on top of everything else, and then hold, right? So the magic numbers are 3 minutes for quick clot and 5 minutes if you're not using quick clot and it's just regular gauze. Those are the magic numbers. What I say is hold the pressure. If you can get a ACE wrap on there and you're still holding pressure, that's gonna be key. In an emergent situation, if we're treating somebody, like if you're in the field and you still have stuff going on, you're probably not gonna be like, all right, it's been 2 minutes. All right, going on 2:30. Get the pressure dressing on there and go about your business, right? Questions on actual packing the wound.
There's no such thing as too much, right?
No, there's no such thing because again, you have to make sure that whole area, that ballistic wound is totally full of gauze.
When you pack it, what happens to the blood that's in there? Is it just getting absorbed by the quick clot or is it being just stopped directly when you identify the bleeder?
No, so you put your finger on the bleeder. So with that, you've stopped the blood flow coming out of the artery, right? Then by putting the quick clot over that and just packing it, that it's still pinched off. You're basically pinching off the end of that vessel. That's why it's so important to identify the bleeder. Just filling this hole isn't necessarily gonna do anything. You have to have direct pressure over that bleed. It's kind of like how a tourniquet works. You're just pinching off that vessel. You know what I mean? I'm gonna set up a couple of things and have you guys pack the wound on a different training aid. All right? So, all right guys, who's hungry?
Oh boy. I mean,
oh yeah, man, we're good. I mean, we're gonna train a little bit and then we'll grill this thing up so you can.
So we will feed Brian is what you're getting.
Absolutely.
Okay,
like, this is dinner, bro.
Food's food, man.
Right now, let's focus on, hey, this is an arterial bleed. I can't put a tourniquet on it, and I know I have to pack the wound. What's gonna happen is I'm gonna have you glove up, Turbo. When you're doing this, I'm gonna ask you to kind of talk us through it. Like, hey, man, I'm identifying the bleed. This is what I'm doing, 1-for-1 swap. However, I want you to kind of tell us, hey, how this works. So what we're gonna do here, we've got practice combat gauze, which is the exact same thing as the quick clot. We've got the regular gauze if you need it. If not, then if that fills the wound, then it fills the wound. If that fills the void, it fills the void. So you've come across your patient, you've identified, I cannot put a tourniquet on this, but by God, that's an arterial bleed. That dude's bleeding everywhere. So, you ready to fix it?
Get her done.
All right, fix it. A lot of blood. That's a femoral artery right there. That thing is going to bleed out in a matter of seconds. So talk us through, what are we doing right here?
So I'm trying to pack it while maintaining pressure where I felt and saw. I did see it for a split second.
So you identified it.
I did identify where the blood was coming from, that was coming this way. So I'm trying to pack it as best I can.
Whatever your technique is, just make sure you don't let up pressure, right?
I'm above the skin level.
Okay.
It's quite firm. I think I've achieved enough packing.
Not good
Very
enough.
firm. No.
You got to know it, dude.
Still no?
No, you have to know it.
Okay.
I can't tell from
Yeah,
here.
it feels...
But you can't be like, I should
Yeah.
be good. You have to be like, no, I got this.
No, it feels rock solid to me.
Okay.
So can you just take the rest of the hemostat and put it on top now?
Absolutely. So you've got your little mound. You've packed that thing. Like you said, it's super firm. You know that thing's packed full of gauze. Take whatever's left, smash it on top, and then this is where you do your pressure dressing over that. So holding for how long?
We're holding for at least 3 minutes.
So when you're doing this, you're holding, and you're like, I'm pretty sure I got it, like it's full. One thing is, dude, no peeking. It's not one of those like, did I get it? And, dude, it's over, you gotta start all over, right? So no peeking. The way you're gonna tell is if you hold this and you have this big mound of gauze under here, if that starts to become red, you know, then even if it goes through like the pressure dressing, you're like, I need to go revisit that thing.
When are you using a chest seal? Let's say this is a gunshot wound to the chest.
So if this is to the chest, you're gonna do a chest seal completely over this whole wound, and you're not gonna poke anything or pack anything in the torso. You're talking like up here, just somewhere where you cannot get a tourniquet on, like groin, something like that. In here, like that, you're not gonna be packing that. You're good to go, man. That's pretty much it, dude. So we'll go down and I'll give you guys each a chance to do this and stop that bleed, and so you guys can get your fingers in that tactile feel of like, dude, I'm 3 knuckles deep in some dude right now. You know what I mean? It's important to feel these things in training because it's so much different than like a plastic or foam aid or something like that. 100%. You can feel that bone, you can feel that muscle, you can feel that skin. So that's why we do this. All right, dude, you ready?
Yep.
All right, so since you're so spun up and an expert now, make this bleed stop, right? I don't know what to tell you, buddy.
Oh, she's a leaker.
Better make it stop. I mean, you might have 30 seconds. How long has this guy been bleeding already? How long, if this is you? I mean, has it been 3 minutes? Has it been 4?
Ryan, I feel lightheaded, dude. You're not hitting it hard enough.
So kind of talk me through what you're doing. Like step number one was...
Step number one is I stopped it with my finger, and then I just started packing. I balled it up and started pushing it in.
All right, so you've now held for how long?
45 seconds.
Okay, how long should we hold it for?
3 minutes.
Perfect. So it's been 3 minutes. What's the next step?
Compress, wrap it.
Yep. So you just do that
Case
compression
bandage,
dressing.
something,
Yep,
duct
exactly.
tape, whatever you can get your hands on.
Absolutely. Perfect. And now that you're 90% an expert, let's get you to 100% by actually having you do it on this piece of tissue here. All right? You ready?
Yeah.
All right, man. That's bad. That's...
So at this point, I feel comfortable that it's packed. I'm gonna hold it for 3 minutes.
Yep.
But knowing real life scenario, my buddy's gonna be probably moving around, kicking and screaming. So I'd probably want someone else holding him down too.
Here's what I always tell people. Always ask for help. You might get it, you might not. Ask for the world, man. Maybe you'll get the stars, right? Or however that goes. Ask for the sun, get the stars.
Knock him out.
Doesn't
You
matter.
gotta do.
That's it, guys. That's wound packing 101.
What is an NPA?
So, NPA, nasopharyngeal airway.
I'm sorry?
Nasopharyngeal airway. How about nose hose?
There you go. See?
Nose trumpet. So you don't need to pronounce it, you just have to know how to use it, and that's the easy part. It's easier to put in than to pronounce it, I can tell you that right now.
Hey. Sorry, buddy.
We got a little surprise for you a little bit later. Before we get into the actual NPA itself, because we're on the A on the march as we're going down these episodes, right? So A is for airway. If your patient is losing their airway due to a traumatic situation or they're losing consciousness, you need to provide an airway for them. And this isn't a choking thing or anything like that. This is basically their tongue is relaxing and starting to rest on the back of their throat, closing off that airway due to losing consciousness, that kind of thing. So choking's totally different. We're just basically creating a little space, a little airway between that tongue and the back of the throat so they can breathe for themselves.
So the question's probably going to come up. and I know it sounds funky, but if they just got pulled out of the water and they're unconscious, obviously this is not the thing to use.
Correct. So when you're thinking about that kind of drowning situation, you're thinking more BLS, kind of Red Cross, like, hey, I need to like breathe for them, maybe chest compressions, that kind of thing. This is different. This is kind of if someone's losing consciousness, generally due to trauma, their tongue's relaxing and the back of their airways getting cut off. So a big indicator of that would be if you kind of hear like a snoring from that person. You're like, oh, I know what's going on. And it's the same thing as snoring at night, because all your muscles are relaxed and that airway starts to close off and you snore. So that's a big indicator, like, oh man, I'm gonna put an NPA in this person.
Do we have an NPA just for adults, or can you put it on babies? Or
Absolutely. So there are several different sizes of an NPA. You've got adult sizes, you've got pediatrics and like kid sizes. I'll show you how to measure it here in a minute. And then I'll go through a couple little tricks like, hey, what if it's too long, stuff like that.
And again, like anything, like a tourniquet, like we talked about earlier, these things aren't made for comfort. They're made to solve a problem at that point.
100%. And when I do my training on this, so many people naturally are, real ginger and kind of timid. And I'm like, go, get it in there, make it happen. Because, it's not the most comfortable thing, like a tourniquet or whatever, but it's got to be done, like you said. And it's, like, oh, I don't know, man, get it in there, make it happen. So get this person an airway.
Got it. So this is going to make Brian really happy then.
Funny.
If you would, Turbo, come over here. I want to show you just a couple of manual moves to help open that airway and get the tongue off the back of the throat. The first one is called the jaw thrust, and it's just that. You'll take your thumbs. If you guys want to feel behind your jaw there's that angle, right?
And you're just pushing it.
Yeah, so all you're doing is you're pushing that forward. And that's physically taking that tongue, because you're moving that whole lower section forward, is taking the tongue off the back of the throat. That's one way. Go ahead and lay down on your back for me real quick. Again, this is just one way to open that airway when you're trying to get the tongue off the back of the throat. So one hand's gonna go up top here on the forehead. The other, I kind of like to pinch the chin like this. What you don't want to do is apply any pressure to the neck, but downward pressure like this, and you're basically kind of opening their jaw for them and kind of pulling that tongue out and away from the back of the throat. So right here, this will allow, like, okay, I can inspect to see if there's anything in here, but the main reason we're doing this is to create that space between the throat and the tongue. So those two are great. They'll work to open the airway, but the issue with that is, okay, now I'm doing the head tilt chin lift, which is what we just did here. I can't walk away, because as soon as I do, that airway is going to start closing again. That's where we start talking about the NPA. Let's do an intervention to where I can put it in and walk away from and know that I have created an airway for that patient. So if you'll lay on your back for me, what I want to do is kind of talk you guys through the step-by-step process on how to insert an NPA. Now, we're not going to insert it, but we're going to go through the motions. I'm going to tell you a couple things, and then we'll get to maybe a live situation in a little bit. We've identified that, hey, this person actually needs an airway, needs a little help. What we're going to do is take our NPA, and of course we're gloved up, and all this goes without saying. But so we've got two main things here: the NPA itself, and then you have to have some kind of lube. Right? Like, this is going to make your life easier. Mm-hmm. It's going to be more comfortable for the patient. So lube and, oh, will you flip over? Some main points here. You've got the top, which is the flange. You can see this little bevel right here, that slant, and then the main body. So that slant is going to go on the patient's right side. So that slant's going to go against the septum, right? So it's created to go nice and flush against the inside of the nose there. A way to measure this is the flange goes against the nose, which is this part, and that bevel goes against the ear. If that matches up, that should fit that patient pretty well. Because when you put this in, you can imagine the patient's natural anatomy. Sure. The airway goes down like this. So when you said, I'm going to shove this up his nose, it's actually you're going to shove it down his nose. So keep that in mind, right? So it just follows the natural anatomy and creates that space. So I'm all gloved up. I'm ready to put this thing in. I take my packet of surgical lube or whatever kind of lube you have, and I like to keep a dry spot where my 2 fingers are because that way it allows me to manipulate it pretty good. And this stuff's super slick and slippery, so I can do that. And then the rest of this will get lubed up. What you don't want to do is get any up here because then that's going to occlude that freaking hole that you're trying to, you know, breathe out of. So lube the whole thing up, right? And then give your patient a little pig nose, right? And then insert, and then push it all the way down. And at the end, like this little thing's gonna be sticking out like this. This will be inside, creating that space for his airway.
Do we need a test subject? Is that what
Yeah.
you're getting at?
Yeah,
Well,
I heard
He went already, and
you were a demo
I was a
guy.
demo.
I guess.
I think you're up, Ryan.
No, you are home. Get on the table. Come on, dude.
You kill me, I'll shoot you.
There we go.
Okay.
Can't kill me if you're dead already.
So I'm gonna give you a pair of gloves because it can get messy. And again, when you're dealing with patients, especially with this kind of stuff, man, you're talking about all kinds of bodily fluids. So, all right, so here's your equipment. I'll help you every step of the way, but I want you to talk me through it. If you jack anything up, I'll stop you and correct it.
Got it. Is this fairly idiot-proof?
Yeah, that's what's so cool about a lot of these things we're going over. Yeah, they might seem kind of invasive or whatever, but they're actually super easy to do. Sure. And they're, you know, life-saving skills. So
What happens if you sneeze wearing this thing?
it'll go shooting out. So remember, keep that 2-finger area pretty dry. It's gonna make your life a little bit easier.
You look like you've done this before.
You know what? I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest. All right, Brian. You ready?
Nope.
All
I'm
right.
gonna pinch his nose back, little pig nose, and then
If you just breathe normal, Brian, and just if you want to swallow, that can help too. Just keep swallowing.
good at that.
That's what she said.
Ready?
Yep, make it happen. Yes,
Breathe, Brian.
just like
Breathe.
that.
There you go.
Breathe. How does that feel?
Good.
Doesn't feel great. Doesn't feel horrible.
Winning fast, right?
But actually, can you tell that difference in your breathing?
I can actually breathe easier.
Yeah. So we'll get this out in a minute. I know it's not super comfortable, but let's talk about something real quick. Let's say he's kind of like starts to gag a little bit. It's triggering his gag reflex. Super easy. All you have to do is withdraw a little bit, like pulling that out a half an inch. We'll fix that.
Got it.
So, and this is a stopgap before he gets like a major airway in. You just bought this dude time till the paramedics show up or you get him to the hospital. So taking it out is just a nice little curve of the wrist and just get it out.
Brian, you want it fast?
No.
You sure you don't want it fast?
Yeah.
What was that
Nice.
looking at, dude?
Dude. Good job, man. When you're going to work and you're like, I've got an MPA in my kit, how do you feel about putting one in your partner, putting one in your teammates?
I think the application of me doing it to a partner or to a civilian or a victim is easy. He's calm. None of the people that I deal with and that you've dealt with are calm. They're hysterical, they're panicking, they're going into shock, which is the whole point why this is going in the first place, right?
Right, so there's an issue with their airway. But keep in mind, generally speaking, because they're losing their airway, they're losing consciousness. If a person's alert and oriented, they probably don't have a huge issue with their airway, and B, they're not gonna tolerate it. They literally, like, I've seen it plenty of times to where they're just not gonna tolerate it. So this is for the semi-conscious and certainly unconscious patient. Got it. That's it, that's all there is to it.
Sweet.
One thing though, so I probably should have mentioned this beforehand. We're gonna do some wound closure stuff, right? We're gonna start looking at like staples. I guess to be fair, you can probably staple Andy?
Yeah.
I mean, is that
I
fair?
love how you leave that to the end,
All right,
huh?
cool, let's do that.
Billy from My Medic, he's going to show us how to use the skin stapler. Dude, it's stuck. Billy! You prefer staples over like skin glue?
Yeah, well, it depends on the wound. Like if it's a little smaller, I'm gonna glue it back together. If you start talking about some bigger lacerations, some bigger cuts, I'm just gonna drop some staples in there.
Okay.
It's easy.
So this wound's about what, 4 inches?
Yeah, something like that. These little mini ones have 15 staples in them. So you have options, right? Like, oh, I put 5 in there, could use a couple more. Dude, drop a couple more in there. You know what I mean?
Can we order these from you guys?
Yeah, you can get these individually. I would highly recommend getting these. These are the mini ones, which I love. I have these in every kit, my canine kit, all my kits. So definitely you can get those individually from the website. I'm gonna show you guys one, and then I'm gonna have you guys do a couple, and you're gonna see just how easy it is to go ahead and close this wound. These guys come in the sterile container. So they're nice and sterile, good to go, nice and clean. So the staple comes out right here. And this is your little deploy button right here. So you'll click that down.
So you stand it up.
Yep. Obviously the 3 C's of wound. So you control the bleeding, C number 1, control the bleeding. C number 2 is clean. Clean it all up. And then we're on the final C, which is close the wound. So assuming we've stopped the bleeding, we've cleaned it, and now we're ready to close this guy up. So you're gonna, what's called approximating the edges. So you're gonna make those edges kind of come together, and if they tent up just a little bit, you're good, because you want them nice and close together. So I've got these nice and approximated. I'm gonna come in, and you can eyeball this, like there's the end of the staple, there's that end of the staple, and you're gonna put that center, and you're gonna just drop it in there like that. Got it. I'm gonna do another one here. Yeah, that's literally it. And you can hear the little clicker. So again, you just drop it in. Press, thumb down, you're good to go. So I'm gonna let you do this. Big thing is make sure those edges are nice and close together. Kind of pinch it together, and then bam, just drop it.
Can I do it now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go for it. So you're gonna have to put a little bit more pressure on there, downward pressure. Nice. Do you see how awesome that's coming together? Like you can barely even see the laceration. That's what we're going for, right? If it's a little ugly, that's fine. It's just a little ugly, and now you're starting to think like, oh, it's just gonna be a nastier scar. Sure. It will pull it together, it will do the job, but the cleaner you can do it, the less scarring you're gonna have.
Got it. Just take a deep whiff of
Nice deep one.
Yep, there you go. All right, so a little off to the side, but it is on both sides. So is this an effective staple? Yes, but I'd like to see a little more centered. So go ahead and drop another one.
Just for good measure?
Yep. There you go, just kind of split that distance.
That reminds me of the staples on my ankle.
I mean, was that pretty easy?
Yeah.
So now compare this to a needle driver, like little hemostats, sutures, you know, the thread, all this stuff. Like, are you gonna suture or are you gonna staple?
Yeah, that was surprisingly easy.
Would you do this to your own child?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I've done it to my dogs a few times, actually.
Jay, check that out. Look. That was really good. Nice.
So it felt really easy as far as doing it ourselves. How bad is it on the receiving end, do you think?
As far as pain?
Yeah.
So let's say this laceration itself, that's probably pretty painful, right?
Got it.
So in order to numb this patient up, what we'll do is take a syringe, fill it full of lidocaine, and insert it in several places around that laceration just to numb them up.
Sure.
So when you start running into things like that, it is literally, it's easier and less painful to just go ahead and drop staples.
Sure.
Because that numbing process, yeah, they won't feel the staples, but now you're poking that patient several times with that needle in something that already hurts.
Yeah.
So are the staples gonna hurt? Yeah, they'll hurt a little bit, but that already hurts.
Sure.
And versus lidocaine, it's just easier to just drop the staple.
Totally.
Especially like in a field situation.
Totally.
But these are so simple and so quick. Oftentimes, if you're just dropping a few of these, you're not gonna get numbed up even in a hospital.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
All right, so when you're stapling, it's always good to have a staple remover as well. You may go to the ER or just the urgent care, whatever, and get them taken out. But if you have one of these, it's super simple to do. So let's say we're out hunting on an extended trip. Let's say we had staples a week ago. I'm not gonna cancel my hunting trip to go in and have these removed. Sure. So it's super easy. Again, it comes in a sterile kit. So there's a 2-prong and a single prong. So you put the 2-prong underneath like that, and then you simply squeeze and it pulls it right out like that. It makes it super easy. So I want you guys to just take out a staple or two real quick. Again, 2-prong on the bottom, slide it under the staple, and then pinch together, and it spreads them out and pops it right out. Yep, bam. And so when you're taking staples out, you or your patient is pretty well healed at that point. And this really isn't very, you're definitely not gonna numb them up with this. It's really not that painful.
It's already scarred up a little bit.
Well, with that being said, you wanna take a staple?
Let's do it.
All right, I'll give it a whirl. Let me grab another stapler.
There's one right here.
All right, so where should we do it? Like, where do you wanna, I've never done this before. I've had staples, but never for no reason.
Yeah, same. I've had them in my face all over, but never
I think this is a pretty sweet spot.
randomly.
All right, let's give it a whirl. So there's your stapler.
Okay.
Actually, let's do this.
Do it to each other.
Let's do this. You staple me, you staple
Fair
Turbo.
enough. Fair enough.
Does that work?
Sounds good.
All right, so set me up, bud. I do want to mention, this is like some jackass stuff. Like, don't practice this at home. Like, we're being idiots right now. So I just want you to know that.
Trained professionals. What are you talking about? All right. Ready?
Yep.
See?
Dude, let me do it to you.
Wait, don't we have to use a different one?
We do. So that's why we're gonna swap this out.
Different one.
All right, you guys want to swap?
Well, him first.
All right, fair's fair. Tell me if you really even notice that, right?
You know what it feels like? Like 2 nails just pinching your skin. Like
Yeah.
someone's like
Barely.
less, and it's less than that.
And it's gone. Like, that's the initial. Now I don't feel anything.
All right, Turbo, where you want it? Right there?
Okay. She's a little high, but we'll keep it closed.
So now how do we get him out?
oh,
You got a good one. You got some meat in there.
check this out.
Dude, it's stuck. Billy!
Medic.
Be there in a second. I'm getting mine done. There you go.
I'm stuck.
What did you do?
Yeah, give him a couple tugs. There we go.
Pinch it a little. Oi.
We good?
I think taking it out hurt more than putting it in.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, he got you too.
Dude, it opens up
Yeah.
like a bat wing. I'm like,
Yeah.
heck, man.
I feel like it'd almost be better to take tweezers and just yank it.
Pull straight.
Well,
curve, right?
but they curve in like that. That's why the 2 prongs like pull them back out, like the bat wing style. It pulls them out like that. Not bad, right? Super
survived.
easy. Close that wound, and
Put
it's
17 of those in you and see how bad it feels.
we'll do it. You want to do it right now?
I'm all go. I'm all set right now. I'm hungry.
Let's go eat, dude.
We're still going on the March protocol. You have myself, Brian. You have lovely Andy here. You have Turbo. And we have Billy again from My Medic. We're going to go over the respiratory thing. And we're going to simulate that Andy got shot by Grindhard ammunition.
Oh, dude, look at that. That is crazy.
But
That's
Tyler, the
gnarly.
slit out the rear end is literally just like a little slit. Top right, heart, lung.
We saw what he did to the dummy. That's not fair. I'm not gonna live, dude.
You might.
That's what his job is.
Well, we're gonna get you fixed up, dude. You
Yeah.
ain't even gotta sweat
Did
it.
you see that dummy?
I did not. As we're going down the March protocol, like you said, massive bleeding, airway. Now we're on R, which is respiratory. So a lot of people mistake it like respiratory. It's different than airway. This is like airway right here, right? Respiratory, think lungs and breathing, actual function of breathing. So now you have a hole in your chest that disrupts basically the vacuum, the negative and positive pressure system that allows us to breathe. So imagine as you inhale, your diaphragm moves and pulls air in. You exhale, and you blow air out. Well, if that's disrupted by, say, a hole, right, in your lung or even in your chest or whatever, that air is going to take the path of least resistance. So that whole positive, negative pressure gets all jacked up, and bad things start to happen. So there's so much that can go into torso injuries and injuries in the box. So think of the box as neck to navel. Anything in this area is going to get a chest seal, right? You want that occlusive, waterproof, airtight dressing, that coverage. But without getting too complicated, let's just cover, hey, I've got a hole in the chest. I need to do something about it.
Do we have an exit?
Maybe. If you have an entrance, you probably have.
If it's grind hard, you have both.
Yeah. So, but that's a really good point, and we train that all the time. Like if something went in, it probably came out somewhere. So when you're looking at your patient, oh, okay, I found a hole in his chest, right? And we're speaking very basic here. I found a hole in his chest. I'm gonna make sure I check his whole torso at a minimum, like, you know, as far as chest seals, as, hey, we need to treat this. I'm checking his whole torso everywhere, sides, back, up here, everywhere, because it came out somewhere, and I need to put that occlusive dressing on there. I need to seal that with a chest seal. So make sure if you got one hole, you probably have two. So something to keep in mind. So we're sitting here. He was like having a great day sunbathing, right? And all of a sudden, bam.
Ouch.
Oh no. Oh no. Takes around, right?
Okay.
So if he takes it one place, it probably came out somewhere, right? So came out right here,
Good one.
right?
What is it,
So
spin and tumble, or?
a little bit,
It was
a little bit.
grind
It was a gnarly round. It's a grind heart. I don't know what to tell you, man. You've got a couple of decent holes in you. What are we gonna do about it?
Put some chewing gum and walk away.
No. So I'm gonna use this chest seal here. These are actually like have a four-way vent in them. So basically air can escape, but it can't come in as he's trying to breathe. You want air to be able to come out, right? Otherwise, as he's breathing, air's going into that chest space, right? That pleural space, we call it. And it's creating pressure, right? More and more and more and more and more and more air. So now this breathing issue starts to become like a cardiac and circulation issue, in that all that pressure is pressing against the heart. It's pressing against the aorta, and it's causing some serious issues with blood flow. So is that collapsed lung gonna kill him? Probably not right away. Is that air and that pressure on the heart and aorta gonna kill him? Yes, absolutely. So we're trying to avoid that. We need to seal that off. We need to make sure air's not getting in there.
So it says clean the area.
Yep,
There's blood obviously everywhere.
right.
So is this going to stick through blood?
Yes, so let's talk through it. So you'll open your chest seal, right? And yes, you do need to wipe the area down, because you want this thing to stick like
As dry
freaking
as
super glue, right? So you take your chest seal out. Now, if you've got anything, like I've got a shirt right here, if you've got gauze, whatever the case is, you're gonna make sure you get that as dry as you can, right?
Okay.
I've heard people go back and forth, like you put the chest seal on during inhalation, or you put it during exhalation, and this is why and that's why. If I'm putting on a chest seal, I'm not gonna watch this dude breathe for a minute and make sure. I'm gonna put that chest seal on as soon as I can, right? And that's just for general real world, hey man, get it on there and get that thing plugged. In the meantime, I'll just open another one. So let's say you're going through and you've noticed this wound. The more air that gets in there, the worse off this patient's gonna be. So what you can do is cover that as you're getting out a chest seal, or like I said, always ask for help, man.
Got it.
Hey, does somebody have a chest seal or whatever? So cover that hole, now it's a stopgap. So you can see I'm one-handed right now, right? This is gonna be hard to open. If I just go ahead and use the back of my hand, I can still plug that hole and open this with two hands, right? So you're not gonna die. You're not gonna die. And that's your patient. Like if your patient's freaking out, which he or she totally might be, communicate with them. Like let them know what's going on. Inform them like, hey man, I'm patching you up. You're gonna be all right.
I see the sheep.
Yeah, going to see the wizard, you know.
There's wizards.
Everything's getting white. But no, so just, talk to them, let them know what's going on. Because I've seen it a lot to where people will just do their thing and not communicate at all. And that's kind of freaky for the patient, right? So go ahead and get your chest seal out. And this is super straightforward.
You're like a hairless kitty.
Oh, dude.
So what you're gonna wanna do is center that wound in the center of the chest seal. So
I'm screwed.
put that thing on. You wanna get this, press it down. This thing has got to stick because, again, it needs to be airtight and watertight. You can see these little holes here. That's the one-way valve so air can escape, but it can't get pulled back in.
Interesting.
So we've got an entrance. What else do we probably have?
Exit.
An exit. So I'm looking around. I'm not seeing anything. See what we got back here. Okay, I found another one. Go ahead and cover that one as a stopgap while we pull out our chest seal. Pull out the same thing. And I'm gonna have you just slap this one on.
Okay.
Remember, center the wound in the center of the chest seal.
Got it.
Again, take whatever you can, make sure you wipe it down. Because torso injuries aren't necessarily gonna be gushing blood like say an arterial wound.
Got it.
There could absolutely be some nasty damage and some bleeding, but it's probably not gonna be like spurting everywhere like some femoral bleed or something like that.
Got it. Making sure it's sealing.
Yeah. All right, I found that one. I quadruple check. All right, nothing else. And now move on to whatever, you have to do next. So that's basically it. And again, the box, neck to navel, anything in that area, sides, everything gets a chest seal. What you're not gonna do, let's say you took around right here, I know we just did wound packing. That's not a thing for the torso or the abdomen because you're gonna end up putting so many rolls of gauze in there really for no reason because whatever is in there, you're probably not gonna get to that bleeder by just stuffing stuff in there. So, but absolutely make sure it's airtight, watertight with a seal, no matter where it is.
Got it.
So that's the long and short of it, guys. You can get deep into the weeds with this stuff, but.
How's it feel?
I don't want to take it off.
It feels great right now.
I'm not taking it off anytime soon.
You might as well just let it fall off someday. All right, what are your questions?
Let's say you don't seal it. You notice there's something is sacrificed on it, or you can see it has a leak. Are you just gonna peel it, grab another one if you have? Hopefully you have another one.
So if you've got a little leak right here, I would leave this on and patch over that leak.
With another one?
Absolutely.
Got it, okay.
If the wound's like quite large, you're just gonna keep throwing them on there. Yeah.
Got it.
If you run out of the actual chest seals, like these packages right here happen to be air and water tight. If you've got some tape, you can tape this down on 4 sides, and now you've got that airtight water dressing too. Okay. So, but ideally, chest seals are so easy and simple to use. Put this over the hole. That's the long and short of it. Again, I'm being simple because I want you guys to remember, hey, this is a pretty easy skill. Hole in chest, put a chest seal on it. Sure. There's a lot of anatomy and physiology, and we can go crazy, but this can be a life-saving procedure, absolutely.
Got it.
How'd that feel?
Fine, like I said.
Can't wait to take that shit off, huh?
I'm not taking it off.
That it?
That's it, man.
All right, guys.
Straightforward.
Well, thanks for watching. Thank you again for My Medic, Billy, coming out.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Want the chest seals? Obviously, go to My Medic and order them.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got all kinds of stuff on the website. We absolutely have chest seals. They are 4-way vented, so air will escape and not pull back in. So it's actually a good thing. And on the last episode, we're going to also review one of their, or 2 of your first aid kits to see what you guys have in it compared to our first episode. Cool. Yeah, let's do it. All right. All right. Thank you guys. Like, subscribe, comment below what you want to see next. Thanks. You ready? Good. Are you sure?
Don't go slow.
Ooh. Damn. Oh yeah, it cleaned them up a bit in there.
All right, guys. Have you ever felt so cold that you don't know what to do with yourself? And you're thinking, man, it's just a cold day, but really it's like 115 degrees. And then you realize, oh wait, I'm bleeding out. And I don't know what's going on. And I'm freezing and everyone's staring at you like you're crazy. Well, this is what our 3 Wise Men episode is going to be talking about today. I want to welcome you. Again, my name's Andy. This is Brian. Our special guest, Billy, from My Medic, and Turbo. Billy, what do we got going on today? So, as we're going down in all these episodes, the March protocol, right? So we've covered massive bleeding, we've covered airway, we've covered respirations, respiratory. Now we're gonna do the C and the H. So C is for circulation. And I wanna touch on this real quick, and for the layman, for the common Joe or Jane, it's just a couple of things. So when we think circulation, we think 2 things. One, pulses, right? And the second is this person bleeding anywhere else? You've got the arterioles down, we already patched that up. All right, here's a laceration, like other circulatory leaks, so to speak. Are you guys aware of how to take a pulse?
Nope, just in a movie.
Okay, basically there's two spots that we're most concerned with here. Number 1 is gonna be the radial, and I can totally feel yours. very easily. So if you'll notice right here, you've kind of got that indentation right after the meat of the thumb there. This is where you're going to find that radial pulse. So if you guys want to feel on yourselves, and if you have to kind of move around, you don't want to press super hard because you'll actually end up kind of like cutting it off. But if you touch just enough, somewhat lightly, you can feel your heart rate. So that's the radial pulse. What's important about the radial pulse is if the patient doesn't have one, they've had some kind of traumatic injury where they've bled a lot, that person has lost a lot of blood. They don't even have enough blood to keep a pulse down at the end of their arms, right? So that's something to annotate, like, I got no radial pulse. This dude is in a bad way. The second place is the carotid, which is right along the neck here. And this is something you guys can feel on yourselves. Some of the people like, oh, in the gym, or whatever, they're feeling for their own pulse, and it's super easy to find. This one's important. Like, if you can't find a radial, check the carotid. Like, okay, they've got a carotid pulse, their blood pressure, and they have enough blood in their pipes to at least keep the carotid palpable, like, so you can feel it. So those are two things to just kind of annotate mentally. And then, of course, like I said, other bleeds, let's tend to those. So that puts us down to the H. The H is something that is often overlooked, and that H is hypothermia. You can be in the Middle East or the desert, running Baja or whatever, and it's 120 degrees. If that patient or if you have lost a lot of blood, you're gonna be cold. If you're a traumatic patient for whatever kind of injury, you're gonna get cold. It's just, again, if it's 120, it doesn't matter. So one of the things that will make that patient start circling the drain real quick on top of all those gnarly wounds, or that gnarly wound or whatever it is getting cold. So that's just gonna increase the chances of that person actually expiring exponentially. Let's go ahead and wrap them in whatever we have. We've got the space blanket here. We've got some of these in one of your kits. I recommend having these in all the kits. So you package them all up, keep them warm, get them to the hospital or wait for the EMTs, paramedics, but they need to stay warm. If you don't have one of these, blankets, other clothes, whatever you can find to keep that patient warm. If your big first aid kit has, ready heat, kind of like the cold packs, there's the heater ones. If you're out hunting, you've got the hand warmers, right? Anything you can do to keep that patient warm is gonna be clutch. If they're wet, get all the wet clothes off. A lot of obvious stuff, I know that, but it's something that people don't really think about, and it is absolutely crucial. Well, what I want to do is just kind of, you haven't been the demo dude yet.
Nope.
So we'll let you guys wrap Turbo up in the space blanket.
Wait, I thought I was getting staples. What's going on here?
Oh, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to that.
Making sure
That'll be another episode. I'm going to have you guys open this package, spread it out, and then I'm going to kind of talk you through how to package that patient.
How big is this thing? Does it say?
Mm-hmm. It's like
82
by 55?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, so for something super small and light, I mean, that goes a long way. Absolutely.
Instructions. Don't panic.
Yeah.
Why is that the first thing? Read that, dude. That's the first thing on there.
So when you're losing your mind and you read the instructions, you're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that was a rule. Now you know.
I'm cool now.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. I guess I'll just chill out.
Here, Brian, I'll share with you, dude.
This is supposed to keep me warm?
Oh yeah. So this reflects in all your body heat. These actually keep you very warm. You'll see in a lot of sporting events like marathons and stuff, they'll wrap the finishers in these things to keep them warm. And they actually do a very, very good job of that.
And it's see-through.
Yeah. Where'd you guys go?
So I'll have you guys lay that. I'll have you guys lay that across the table, and we'll talk about how to package the patient in this thing. You want to make sure these things are open all the way because you want every square inch of usable material. All right, so Turbo, you'll be the demo dude on this one. So just go ahead and lay kind of crossways across the table here on your back. Yep. So again, this is pretty easy, pretty simple and straightforward, but a couple things to point out. You want the downside, right? So you want the patients, whatever they're laying on, you want that to be covered. You don't want them just laying on the dirt. You don't want to just simply cover them. You want to burrito them up. So having them lay on it to begin with is the best way to start that. Once you do that, then you can start wrapping.
Arms inside, I assume.
Yeah, keep the arms in.
Oh, I already
Absolutely.
feel the warmth.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, it's for real. So,
Feel like a little burrito?
Turbo's super tall here. So 2 things to keep in mind. If you're gonna have any part exposed, go ahead, the legs can stick out. The most important part is the torso. And actually what you're doing here, you're gonna want that head covered. As much material as you can get up and around here, give them a hood, the better. So head and torso. You can see down here, like, all right, we don't have complete coverage. That would be ideal, but this, we got what we got, right? That's real world. Like, you might not have the biggest blanket, but we do have this. So I've got his head and his torso burritoed up. And those 2 things are clutch. He's covered on the downside. How warm is it in there?
Can I take it off?
Is it hot?
It's warm.
I don't know, man.
Really warm.
So it's crazy warm, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, all that body heat is being reflected back in and kept in there.
Nothing being let out of here.
Yeah. So it's far easier to prevent hypothermia than to treat it. Once that happens, man, it's pretty tricky to go ahead and get that core temp back to where it should be.
Wow, it's amazing how fast you feel the heat radiate within the blanket. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you just throw it over your legs will instantly get warm. So
I'll wrap myself on a burrito later.
you have at it. I will pay you $50 though if you can get it back to where it was originally.
I don't even think that's possible.
Square by square.
So you'll see some of these things that are out there are like orange on one side and reflective on the other. That's great. That orange can be a good signal for like getting people's attention. But keep in mind you're doing the reflective side in always. So if there's silver side and orange side, silver side in.
It's hot, dude. Right?
Isn't it? So again, the C and the H for the common person, they do go pretty fast. But remember, hypothermia is a super huge threat for that traumatic patient. So always keep them covered, keep them warm.
Makes sense.
You might want to take that off to do your ending.
Well, I guess I'll take this off. All right, guys, so we've covered everything in regards to March, something I didn't know, and I don't think any of my partners here knew.
Nope.
And that's all thanks to Billy and my medic. They really helped us understand and grasp the concept of practical application using these things. It's all fun and games when we're out there shooting and having a good time. However, in real life scenarios, things that we may need are not going to be so easy to come by or easy to use or actually apply. So it was good to have you show us all these different types of things that we can actually use on ourselves or our people that we care about.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, honestly, because that helps me, that helps everyone here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Like, this stuff's near and dear to my heart. It means a lot to me. So thank you guys for having me.
Of course.
Anytime.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
We're going to discuss my medic's first aid kits compared to a competitor. We have Andy, myself Brian, Billy from my medic, and Mr. Turbo. And we're going to discuss the differences between my $500 kit and my medic's $350 kit and what essentials are in here and what's missing, if anything. Billy, I'll let you take it away.
Cool, thanks, dude. So yeah, we covered the big old Baja kit, and there's all the way down to this little guy here. So we kind of talked about it earlier. Have a kit for the purpose. Great vehicle bag, awesome to have in your Baja truck. I'm not going to carry that on mission. I'm not going to carry that in the field. I am going to have that on my chest rig or
This
on
little baby guy with the molly straps.
So let's just go from small to big, right? Let's go from basic to all the way to something like that.
Okay.
So this is something, obviously we took this off your chest rig.
Yep.
This is what you carry, and you've got all the basics in here. So let's check out the basics. And this is what
You have life support.
What's that?
I'd say life support, basically.
This is all life-saving stuff. Absolutely, 100%. So as we go down the march, since we're all familiar with it, the march protocol, you hit the M right here with a massive bleed, right? Stop the bleeding. Arterial bleeds, you're good to go because you've got a tourniquet. You've got quick clot in here. Quick clot, hemostatic gauze, and an ACE wrap. So there you go. If you can't put a tourniquet on it, you can go ahead and pack the wound with that stuff. Airway. You've got your NPA here. This will create an airway for your patient. Moving down the line, 2 chest seals, right? Always have 2 chest seals in your kit. Why? Because if something goes in, it probably came out somewhere. And then you do have some compressed gauze in here, which is great because we talked about, hey, you have to fill that void. So packing wound stuff, good to have. You've got a second quick clot in here, which is outstanding. So moving on down the line, circulation, obviously we know how to check pulses now. We know to make sure to check for other bleeds. So we're down to the H for hypothermia. You do have a space blanket in here so you can keep yourself or your patient warm with that. So you're covered on the life-saving stuff right here. All this stuff, you've got a few extra things here with some gauze, some topical stuff like for burns and stuff like that, some gloves, some over-the-counter meds, irrigation stuff, tweezers, skin glue, and some trauma shears there. So with this, it has all the essentials you're gonna need. These are the essential life-saving items right here. This will get you to this. This is gonna save a life. Point of injury, good to go with that stuff. Let's get back to the vehicle where we can start splinting things. We can get some electrolytes if they're dehydrated, on and on and on. So you've got redundancy in the life-saving things with this kit. And then you also have, hey, let's go a step further. Let's get an ice pack on them. Let's, get the smaller wounds or lacerations treated, bigger burns. So this, hey man, this is the next echelon of care. Once you pass through this, then you can go, like, hey, I've got another giant kit like that you can take it even further. But I gotta tell you, so the Recon kit comes in that size. If you wanna hold that up, all this fits in that bag. So awesome to have in your vehicle, super good. Again, hey, this is kind of like the second echelon. Now I can irrigate wounds, I can do all this stuff, right? But that stuff will save your life.
That's what's getting you back to this.
Exactly, 100%. You've got that in your vehicle, like that's perfect. As long as I can get back to this, man, I'll treat my lacerations at the truck. But that is gonna stop my arterial bleed or whatever, you know what I mean? Super smart way to do things is pack for the job, you know what I mean? Pack for the kit, pack for the vehicle, pack for the Baja race or whatever. So
That makes sense.
$100, we know it'll get you through critical.
Yep, exactly. What I say is, is $100 worth it? And I mean, hey, what if I spend $30 on a tourniquet, for example? I mean, it's a cost of a life, actually. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's $100. I don't know, is that expensive? I don't know. Like, what would you want in a situation where you're bleeding out? Like, man, I should have spent that $100, right? You don't want to be in that situation. You don't want to be unprepared at the time of an emergency. Too late at that point. So
Now, Billy, let's say, I think the most common thing we'd probably use is going to be a tourniquet. Mm-hmm. I've had it where my tourniquet, I've had to give it up, and it is what it is. My job is to save people, right? Sure. If I got to put this on a victim or any of my partners, what's your guys' guarantee, if any, on those?
So I'm glad you asked. Let's say, for example, God forbid, you hit us up like, I use this on my partner, I saved his life, here's a story. We'll be like, hey, here's one, it's in the mail, we'll give you a free one for the cleat of life, guarantee.
That is actually really cool.
I don't think you want it back bloody anyway.
No.
Yeah, once you put that on, it's gone, man.
But that's nice to know. There's a lot of companies that, they're out there to make a quick buck. And from what it sounds like, you guys, by your price point, what you guys have to offer, your time just coming out here and talking to us and explaining step by step of what each of these different unique March essentials do is, it just shows where your guys' head at as a company is as far as saving lives and teaching us how to keep ourselves safe and others safe that work with us. So that's pretty cool, man. A lot of companies wouldn't do that. They'd be like, oh no, you have to unfortunately buy another one. Really?
That's honestly what we're all about. That's what I love about the company. It's a drive for me, like, to push, like, hey man, this is the stuff you need, because that stuff's important to me personally. But what's cool about working for MyMedic is they believe the same thing I do. They're into it for the same reasons. They really believe in it. It's not about let's make a bunch of money, because there are a bunch of bandwagon jumpers out. This is a huge market now more than ever, right? Oh yeah. But MyMedic is truly concerned. We're not trying to just make a dime and charge this and charge that. We honestly, truly care, and it's how we all got started, is the passion for helping others.
Well, I guess a big thank you for being a company that's out there helping us and helping anybody for any scenario. I mean, from being out in Baja, hunting, fishing, climbing, working in law enforcement, firefighters, whatever, EMTs and military. That's great. That's you're good in my book.